Hi, welcome to Let's Talk Mediation with Lydia and Friends. My name is Adolfia, and today I'll be taking you through some of the stages of mediation, the different phases. But for today's episode, we'll just be talking about the first two phases of what you should actually expect in a mediation session, should you choose to use mediation as your preferred means of settling dispute. One of the first phases of what you should expect is what we call the plenary session. Most times this is a joint session where often the mediator actually sitting together with both parties to a dispute. And at this stage, depending on the nature of the conflict, sometimes the conflict could be so contentious that it would not be a good idea to bring two parties together under the same roof in the same space. But if it is not a very contentious dispute, sometimes it's actually better to let the two parties be together at the opening phase, which we call the plenary session. At this session, of course, after the introductions from the mediator and maybe name of the ground rules, which are very important because the ground rules will actually guide what should be expected in a mediation session, the appropriate way of communication, and of course the decorum that is expected from all the parties. Then the mediator will give, most times, the party that brought the matter to the mediation table the opportunity to actually state, whatsoever is their dispute. And at this stage, the party is supposed to state whatsoever are the contentions in a very concise manner, when the other party is supposed to actually be listening and maybe taking down notes if it is really vital. And then the skill that is expected of the mediator at that stage is active listening skills. Because the mediator needs to listen into both the said and the unsaid things that might be bothering that party. After which, the mediator will be expected to actually do what we call reframing or paraphrasing. The essence of this is to be sure that no nitty-gritty was lost in the process, summarizing basically what the party to dispute has said. And then the other party will be given an opportunity to also state their case, also in a succinct manner. And once they are done with this stage, naturally, most times the skilled mediator would have been able to have a firm knowledge of really what the underlying issues are. After the plenary session, at times, the next stage, depending on the nature of the dispute still, is for the mediator to actually go into what we call exploration. Now, exploration phase, the mediator actually uses a lot of skills. Remember, a mediator is supposed to be a very skilled professional that has been trained to function in that role. At that stage, the mediator begins to actually ask probing questions that can unearth most of the underlying issues that must not have been stated, maybe at the plenary stage. And during the exploration phase, sometimes depending on how the dispute actually is, the mediator could actually decide to use a technique in mediation that we call caucusing. At times at the caucusing phase, you might actually have to see the parties in camera. By that I would mean you see the party a different or removed from the other party. The essence of this is actually to delve in further, because most times that's when you'll be unearthing a lot of salient points that were either left out intentionally, or maybe that was their strategy at mediation not to say everything at the plenary stage. This exploration phase is very important. And of course, the fundamental principles guiding mediation, which I had mentioned earlier, remember the confidentiality principle? It will really come in there, because at this stage, the mediator is supposed to stress even further that, look, you could actually tell me in confidence some of the things you might not even want to say out in the plenary. And at that stage, the mediator is supposed to double check and check again to be sure that the information that is being gathered, he or she would need to sieve out what is important what they need to take back to the plenary, and to be sure at the joint session if they want some of this information to be divulged. The exploration phase is so crucial because if it is done appropriately, you'll begin to see a strategy that could be used to help the parties creatively resolve their dispute. At this stage, it calls on the mediator to put in all his or her tools in tray to help to explore and delve further. Sometimes that's when you begin to notice that sometimes the position that a party is taking might not really serve their interest or their needs. Anyway, let's leave that. That will be a subject for the next session. Remember, I said it calls on the mediator to use a lot of skills. And at this stage, if it is done properly, you will actually be able to come up with a strategy that would serve the parties adequately to address whatsoever might be their interests or their needs, which might not actually be what their position is. Remember, we mentioned 2 stages or 2 phases in a mediation process today. We talked about the opening statement, which is done at the plenary session, and we've also talked about the exploration phase and some of the skills and the tools that the mediator would need to use. So, make it a date some other time in the very next upcoming episode where we'll be delving in further to other phases or stages in the mediation process. And of course, the skills that would be required and the strategies that could be used. Keep watching Let's Talk Mediation with Lydia and Friends.